this is a bit different from what I normally do. I just got back from watching Captain America Brave New World, and I know a lot of you are probably seeing reviews that say that it is one of the worst MCU films since Endgame, which probably shouldn't even surprise you at this point. Yeah, ever since Endgame, the MCU has not been the same. I don't think it's that bad as everybody else is saying. I still find a lot of them very enjoyable. This one, I went in with very low expectations, and Sam Wilson becoming Captain America, it does look a bit jarring if you haven't seen the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series on Disney Plus. I will be talking about minor spoilers in this video, so do with that what you will. Yeah, so we haven't really seen what Sam Wilson has been doing since Endgame, really, because that was just one series with him as the main protagonist. And for some people, they may disagree with the decision that Captain America himself, Steve Rogers, when he handed the shield to Sam Wilson and not Bucky. I can understand that, but at the same time, I feel like Sam, he should be the right heir based on how his character has been portrayed in the MCU. He's like, if anything, if I compare Sam Wilson to Bucky Barnes, I think Sam Wilson has that kind of leadership you would have with Steve Rogers, even just a little bit. But in this film, I feel like the writers have written him in kind of an arrogant, like writing him as if he's like a perfect human being who knows what's right and what's wrong. So that can come off as a bit of a turn off if he really wants to take on the mantle. I mean, he is Captain America in this film, and everybody starts calling him Captain America. But for some, I can understand it. It doesn't feel like Sam Wilson has actually become the Captain America. Probably Marvel Studios just wanted nothing more to do with Steve Rogers, and because you have been introduced to Sam Wilson since the Winter Soldier, and so naturally he would be the heir to take on the mantle. And sometimes it's how it works, but other times like this, I feel like you could have given Sam Wilson more time to shine as the Falcon and not Captain America. You look at Sam Wilson and look, he's got all this Wakandan technology with him. You see the vibranium shield giving him the kinetic absorbing damage and then releasing it back to the attackers kind of power. And you feel like that's not what Captain America should fight like. And, later in some scenes, I just feel like I was watching an Iron Man movie instead of a Captain America movie. And also he has, the Black Panther sort of technology infused in his suit. That didn't help. But, as one point in the film, Bucky was like giving him the inspirational speech. You are not Captain America because you have a serum. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to take the serum, but you just have to be a good man who stands for, American values. And that's who Captain America really is. And I think the movie it really emphasizes that and how Sam Wilson wants to live up to the legacy that Steve Rogers left at the end of Endgame. You know, it's a process to take on the mantle, but everybody is calling him Captain America already. Yeah, they could have given him a bit more time. Maybe Falcon working with Bucky Barnes for some time, and then they go through some hand-to-hand combat trainings. In the film, you could clearly see that when Sam Wilson is fighting another really jacked dude, he is clearly at disadvantage here. When you're fighting an overpowered being, that's what Avengers always encounter, the overpowered beings. Like, if you don't have the serum, but you're just relying on technology can only take you so far. Now, I want to get into a little bit of what I thought of the Red Hulk versus Captain America scenes. I think it was a good length, but like a lot of the Captain America fighting was a bit off against the Red Hulk, and I feel like, maybe if Sam actually took the super soldier serum, would he be able to stand a chance against Red Hulk? But I think at this point, Marvel Studios kind of accepted that, like, if you're taking on a mantle from an established superhero, like, you are already given all the powers that your predecessor already has, and you can even do more with all those powers. So I think that bit can be very unrealistic. And, a good chunk of the film, other than the Red Hulk versus Falcon, Captain America scenes, is not action. And honestly, I'm okay with that. Just look at something like The Winter Soldier, when it had all the conspiracy plotline with Hydra, and you're going to an underground bunker to discover the message that Zola left so many years ago. It kind of feels like some people say that they're copying what they've done before. I think that is quite true. So as for the big bad, the elephant in the room here has got to be the leader. And is he really compelling villain in this movie? I think for maybe the first half, he worked as a villain. And, when Isaiah stood up all of a sudden and shoots at Ross and misses, I thought it was some kind of Winter Soldier trigger words, yeah? Like Falcon and Cap, they were trying to figure out what was going on there. But it's really just mind control. And I thought that was really cool. Only that the leader did not predict everything right. So I felt like, because we are told that the leader has the brain capacity to make 80% or something predictions true, but in the film his plan just fails so miserably. Even the Falcon, he outsmarts the leader, so I feel like that could be a little bit underwhelming. And when Betty Ross, when they mentioned Betty Ross, I was actually a bit surprised. That was like a cameo thing. And Ross, you see, he has a lot of problems, and he's very bad-tempered. Ross, you kind of feel bad for him, right? And Liv Tyler's Betty Ross shows up even for brief second. You're like, oh, that's very nice. They tied that back in, but at the same time, you think, why couldn't Betty Ross just phone her dad when the assassination happened and visited him? I know even you guys are so distant and you haven't been on the best terms for years. As the daughter, you should care about your dad, and especially when his heart is failing. I feel like the dynamic is kind of missing. Another thing I wanted to talk about, speaking of Ross, is how he acts so differently. I know, like William Hurt, when he was Ross, he didn't act like he's about to throw temper tantrum all the time when he hears the bass and loud noises. But in this film, I don't know if it was intentional or if it was just Harrison Ford's acting, but he acts just way too differently from the version we've come to know before. That can be a little bit distracting, but it's not a big deal because I think it ultimately worked for this movie and for the conflict they were trying to tell. And for the second act of the film, where they're trying to fight off, not that they're trying to fight off the Japanese forces, but Captain America, Sam Wilson, and Falcon are trying to stop the leaders' controlled soldiers from firing at the Japanese forces that wanted to take over some adamantium. I felt like they could probably explore more with that aspect. Like, if adamantium is known to the whole world, like, how are we gonna use that? In the future films, I think they will definitely explore that and have their own like X-Men stories based on that too. But that's a story for a different time. At the end of the day, Captain America films should feel like Captain America films, but the way I see it, it's kind of like Black Panther Wakanda Forever situation, where last time it was because the actor died, Marvel Studios just decided to remove him and remove the character out of the picture too. I feel like that was kind of disrespectful, and Shuri surely wasn't ready to take on the mantle. And I think, we could have probably had some more time with Shuri as well, because he's only appeared in like 3 films before Wakanda Forever. That just felt, a bit jarring as well. A similar problem with this movie. And another thing, one last thing actually, I wanted to talk about is how they've stopped mentioning Steve Rogers altogether. And I know, like, you want to have someone else to take on the mantle, but come on. Like, Steve Rogers, he did not die. He didn't go to the moon. So why is everybody pretending like Steve Rogers is dead? And in the film, you can see that Isaiah, even if he is probably like 70, 80 years old, or over 100, I'm not really sure how long he has been around in the MCU. I'll probably have to watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier again just to catch that detail. But you see him alive and kicking as an old Captain America. So it should make sense for Steve Rogers to be able to do that too, right? And I know he's old and all, but he's a fucking goddamn super soldier. So let him be at least mentioned, you know. And you could probably bring Captain America, Steve Rogers, back in something like Secret Wars, not just for cameo, for the sake of cameos, but to actually update us on what he has been up to since Endgame. It would really help to connect the MCU back together. Because right now, what we've only got 2 or 3 films before the next Avengers, and the MCU has been very disconnected for the last few years. So, if you want to get the whole band back together, like Ross intended to do in this film, you should at least put some effort in starring other characters in your movies, just like the good old days. So, yeah, that's something that's been missing in the past couple of years. Like everybody's doing their own thing. I mean, that's fine if you're telling good stories, but they're not exactly telling the best stories. That's just, I don't know. They have just lost their sense of direction going forward. Like, how is this film gonna lead to even Doom Wars? Secret Wars, I feel like that's probably gonna be an excuse for introducing multiverse characters, but I hope I'm wrong. And in the future, like Marvel should take notes of those things.